Hello, my name is Henry Kean. This is News Pulse at UATV. Welcome to the Daily Show. Today in the episode, Ukraine reaches 1,800 kilometers deep into Russia. See live footage of Russia on fire and Vladimir Putin commenting on that. King-size speech, King Charles III urged America to support Ukraine just as the world did on 9/11 and gets the American Senate standing applause. Ukrainian drone manufacturers get big beautiful offers to help ship owners to safely pass the Strait of Hormuz. Since the onset of the full-scale invasion, the defense forces of Ukraine have increased the range of deep strikes operations into the aggressor's deep air by over 2.5 times. If in 2022 a military target was struck at ranges of approximately 630 kilometers, then now successful hits at the enemy's war machine confirmed at distances of 1,800 kilometers. Drones have attacked industrial sites in the cities of Orsk and Orenburz in Perm Oblast, just as well located more than 1,500 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. A fire at the Orsk oil refinery has broken out, while the Lukoil refinery may also have been targeted. At least the local mayor, Comrade Vorobyov, reported the threat of a drone attack in the city and urged residents not to go outside and to stay out of their windows. The Russian Federal Agency for Air Transport also announced temporary restrictions on aircraft arrivals and departures at Orsk Airport and several other airports across the country, but we just do not have too fancy footages for you, as all the above-mentioned objects are probably not yet ablaze in full swing. But as soon as they will, UATV will be happy to show. And now, I'm sorry, but it's Tuapse again this time. However, we have prepared a clipped, big, beautiful footage for you. And it is, of course, way more vivid than any of my comments ever will be. But before you're going to enjoy the clip live, please hear out a comment from someone who actually should know it all, what is really going on in Tuapse.
Последний пример – это удары по энергетическим объектам в Туапсе.
The last example is the strikes on energy facilities in Tuapse, which can potentially cause serious environmental consequences. The governor has just reported right from the location there, well, at least a couple of hours ago seems no serious threats at all. People deal with the challenges they face right on the spot.
Если бы это нейросетью было сделано, то да.
King Charles III on Tuesday stood before a joint session of Congress and delivered amongst the most pointed comments and allied leaders as given on American soil during President Donald Trump's second term. Charles invoked NATO's Article 5 response to the terrorist attack on September 11, 2001, a direct rebuke to Trump's regular needling of NATO allies as not doing enough for the United States. The king also called for unyielding resolve in defense of Ukraine.
In the immediate aftermath of 9/11, when NATO invoked Article 5 for the first time, and the United Nations Security Council was united in the face of terror, we answered the call together, as our people have done so for more than a century, shoulder to shoulder through 2 world wars, the Cold War, Afghanistan, and moments that have defined our shared security. Today, Mr. Speaker, that same unyielding resolve is needed for the defense of Ukraine and her most courageous people.
Politico writes that Trump called the UK the closest friend to the United States after actually accusing Britain and other NATO countries in not helping to unblock Hormuz Straits. But Trump now is praising the British military. On the White House X account appeared a photograph of Trump and the King laughing together with the captions, "Two Kings," mocking critics who refer to him as a wannabe monarch in the widespread No Kings rallies across the country. By the way, Charles III, during his speech, pointed to the establishment of the Magna Carta in 1215, which declared that even a king isn't above the law. U.S. Chargé d'Affaires in Ukraine, Julie Davis, is set to step down from her post due to frustration with President Donald Trump's reduced U.S. aid for Ukraine. As Financial Times writes, citing informed sources, Davis became disillusioned with her role amidst disagreements with Trump over his approach to supporting Ukraine. She had informed the State Department that she plans to end her diplomatic career after more than 30 years of service. Interesting fact that previous U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Bridget Brink, announced her resignation in April 2025, also due to growing political differences with the administration of President Trump. One of Ukraine's largest FPV drones manufacturers, TAF Industries, told BBC News Ukraine that it has received requests from ship owners in the Middle East to deploy its specialists equipped with anti-drone systems. Their mission is to provide vessel protection during transit through the Strait of Hormuz, which continues to be blocked by Iran. This marks the first such request for a private Ukrainian company to provide military consulting services in the context of maritime security in the Middle East. Since the start of the war in Iran, dozens of Ukrainian drones manufacturers have received expert requests for the finished products from Persian Gulf nations. However, as of late April, not a single such application has been approved at the state level. And now President Zelensky stated that he has made several decisions intended to simplify the transfer of Ukrainian weaponry and expertise abroad as part of relevant agreements with partners. Zelensky added that the surplus of production capacity in Ukraine for certain types of weapons reaches as much as 50%, so Ukraine is now able to offer partners so-called drone deals, specific agreements on the production and supply of Ukrainian drones, missiles, shells, and other sought-after weapons.
Our special format of cooperation with partners supporting Ukraine, the drone deals, is already underway with countries across 3 regions: the Middle East, the Gulf, Europe, and the Caucasus. A proposal is also on the table for our American partners. This covers drones, defense systems, and other types of weapons that are essential for building real protection in the air, on land, and at sea. Once again, the terms must be beneficial for Ukraine, there must be clear oversight, and the proceeds from exports must strengthen Ukraine's defense. That is the way it will be. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
Russia continues being Russia, threatening consequences to the whole world if it does not obey, this time targeting France. Russia's permanent representative to the UN stated that the Kremlin has prepared response options for a possible reinforcement of the French nuclear arsenal. In his Russian view, the West is using, I quote, imaginary Russian threats, end of quote, as justification for its policies. Well, how Europe is actually rearming and preparing for potential Russian aggression in the following story.
Germany needs a reliable nuclear deterrent mechanism, stated Foreign Minister Johann Vadeful ahead of the 11th Non-Proliferation Treaty Conference in New York. At the same time, the German foreign minister emphasized that Berlin remains committed to the principle of nuclear non-proliferation.
As long as nuclear threats against us and our partners continue, we will need a credible deterrent. Johann Vadeful, German foreign minister from a Reuters publication.
The nuclear weapons control system is experiencing one of its most serious crises, claims UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. Many Cold War-era agreements have either lost their force or ceased to exist. For example, the treaty between the United States and Russia expired in February. European countries currently lack sufficient nuclear potential for effective deterrence against Moscow, experts say. However, important steps are already being taken. In March, Paris and Berlin announced plans to deepen cooperation in nuclear deterrence. France, the only nuclear power in the EU, declared its readiness to expand its nuclear umbrella. President Emmanuel Macron stated that Germany, Poland, the Netherlands, Belgium, Greece, Sweden, and Denmark have shown interest in this deterrence model.
If you look at the nuclear components of European states, the situation leaves much to be desired. For instance, France has around 300 nuclear warheads, while the United States has 5,000. Just for comparison, the United Kingdom is not far behind France, and in fact, their stockpile might even be smaller. In terms of nuclear deterrence, the European continent cannot serve as an alternative to the United States and NATO.
European countries are also striving to strengthen their own defense industrial complex. According to The Telegraph, London is considering the creation of a defense bank for the Joint Expeditionary Force countries. This cooperative framework includes the UK, Norway, Finland, Sweden, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Denmark, Iceland, and the Netherlands. This initiative aims to help modernize weaponry in response to the Russian threat.
Plans for a JEF bank, referring to the Joint Expeditionary Force, would enable the alliance of 10 Northern European NATO nations to fund security projects by borrowing money at lower interest rates. From an article in The Telegraph.
Ukraine's expertise in modernizing European armies is especially crucial. The Prime Minister of Poland announced plans to create its own drone army based on the experience of Ukraine's defense forces.
I am pleased to announce that Poland's plan to create a drone army will be implemented with the technical support and expertise of our Ukrainian friends in this field. It is very important to me that the tragic yet impressive experience of Ukraine in resisting Russia becomes part of our own defense capabilities for protecting Poland's skies.
Russia remains NATO's #1 threat, said the chairman of NATO's military committee. The Kremlin aims to restore its influence, lost after the collapse of the Soviet Union, according to Giuseppe Dragone. However, analysts believe that NATO must also consider the growing influence of two other countries.
Indeed, Russia is identified as the enemy. NATO was created specifically to counter the Soviet Union and its expansion. However, the NATO doctrine should include certain other countries that pose a threat, namely China and Iran. This transformed NATO structure would then function as a monolithic partnership in today's reality.
The eastern flank of NATO is already preparing to counter a potential Russian attack. However, former NATO Military Committee Chairman Rob Bauer is confident that the decision to invade will not be made in the Kremlin. Due to Russia's dependence on China, it is unlikely to engage in direct aggression without Beijing's approval. Reported by Nikita Skoblikov, UATV News.
That's it for today. My name is Henry Kean. Thank you so very much for investing your precious time in Ukraine and watching this very episode. We appreciate that a lot. Please also comment, like, and subscribe to the channel. Whatever comes next tomorrow, UATV will be there to keep you posted on that in Ukrainian perspective. As usual, stay safe and see you tomorrow.